How's it going, everybody? Welcome to We Do Tech. Now, we all know Cooler Master is known for their peripherals, cases, PSUs, but that might actually change now because they're also joining the monitor market as well. Currently, they have released two monitors so far. You do get a 27-inch model and then also the nice big 34-inch ultra-wide, which we are gonna take a look at today. But first, a message from our sponsor. Here at We Do Tech, we always need a fast, small storage, and Transcend delivered with the ESD250C being a 960 gigs equipped with a USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type-C port. You will reach read speeds up to 520 megabytes a second and writes up to 460 megabytes a second. Not only is it a fast, but you can also use it for your console or your mobile phone. This is a great external SSD that can almost fit inside your wallet even. But if you don't have any open USB port to plug it into, Transcend has you covered with that as well with their lightweight 6-in-1 USB Type-C 3.1 Gen 2 Hub 5C featuring a micro SD and a UHS 2 SD card slot, two USB Type-A ports, a USB Type-C port, and also a Type-C with a 60 watt power delivery, so you can connect your laptop manufacturer's charger to the port as well. So check out the link in the video description if you want to get either the Hub 5C or the ESD250C, linked in the description below. So then, starting off with pricing, Cooler Master has always been one of the more affordable options when looking for a new gear. So will this be the same case regarding their monitors? Well, currently the 27-inch is retailing for around $300 or 7,000 Rand for here in South Africa, and around $750 or 15,000 Rand for the 34-inch model again here. So it's not necessarily the cheapest 34-inch that you get, because I did see some around $500 on Newegg and Amazon. So it's going to depend on how much you can get it for, or some of the other models available in your region as well, because some other models are also quite a bit expensive. For instance, here in South Africa, the 34-inch model for 15,000 Rand is actually quite a steal for everything you get. So let's go over all of the feature and all of that and tell you guys why, for especially here in South Africa, it's such a good deal. Alright, so just before we get into the panel, let's go over the design of this big boy first. And starting off with the stand, you do actually get a pretty cool base here in the shape of Cooler Master's hexagon logo that actually has plenty of space here if you wanted to, for instance, put your phone there on a charging pad or a controller or so on. You do have plenty of space there, and it does actually keep the monitor quite steady when moving around. The table is wobbling quite a bit, so you won't have to worry about that. You are able to adjust the monitor up and down as well, plenty of that. It can tilt, swivel, and do all of the basics. It's just a bit stiff there. Now it is, of course, a bit heavier, but actually not that heavy compared to some other 34-inch monitors, which I was actually quite surprised on. Now the stand is quite basic though, with just a solid cylinder here at the back, with no real cable management to speak of. The cables just kind of hangs loose there at the downwards. So what we just did, we took the cables and routed it at the back over the stand, and that kind of helps you keep it a bit more clean, where you can just cable management here on the base on the stand. So that's kind of the only way to keep it nice and clean. But now the monitor does also feature a VESA mount, so if you wanted to, you can wall mount this big boy, which I think will look really cool, especially if you can also route your cables through the wall. Then if you do have a drywall house or room, that's going to work quite well, and it's just going to look very neat. Now then, as for the build quality, I'm quite pleased with it. It's pretty sturdy, and it does feel pretty premium. Here at the back, it is quite a bit thick, but not as thick as some other 34-inch ultra wide, so not bad at all. And again, it is a pretty lightweight as well, but doesn't feel cheap. So a good going Cooler Master. Now as for the back of the monitor, it is quite plain, but thanks to the 3 purple light strips, it does give it a bit of a cleaner gaming look, which I actually quite like. Now they are only purple, however, and they do only have a static color and a blinking effect. So if you wanted to brighten it up a bit more, you would need to get a RGB strip, and especially if you want to get a nice glow against your wall as well, because it does give some, but only if all of the lights are off. If you do have a summer light in your room or just your ceiling light on, it's gonna be very hard to really see the glow against the wall. But if you also just put it on your desk where somebody might be able to see the back, that is going to look quite nice. Now then, jumping into I/O, there are 2 display ports, version 1.4s, 1 HDMI 1.4 and also 1 HDMI 2.0 port, and then a headphone out port. I would have actually liked if to see a USB pass-through hub as well, but it's at least not a deal breaker, but hopefully for the next version we'll be able to get that. Now it's been a while since we've actually done a ultra-wide monitor here on the channel, and I have to say I'm so glad, because testing it out and just using it for a couple of days now, it's so great. I just miss using one of these, especially the 34 inches. It looks so good. So then for the panel, the GM34 uses a 1500 curved 34 inch 3440 by 1440 VA quantum dot panel. There's a lot of info there. That does run at 144 Hz and has a max brightness of 400 nits. So quite a lot of specs going on right there. As for the VA quantum dot panel that they used, the color grading out of the box is a bit on the cooler side, so tweaking the colors to your liking will be the first thing that you would like to do. We just added a tiny bit of warmth to it, and it just looked astonishing right there. But now after all of that, the color from the GM34 really pops out and it's nice and vibrant. Cooler Master states that it does cover 95% of the DCI-P3 color space and 125% of the sRGB color gamut, which what we could tell without really tasting it or having a color grading tool, that does look to be the case, because it looks so good. We did a lot of Photoshop color grading and also some of our video color grading on the monitor, and it was just a dream. Like I usually say, if we get in a monitor that does have a high color accuracy, it just makes our life so much easier and so much more enjoyable, because everything just looks so good. But of course, it doesn't only work for color grading or some of our productivity work, but our gaming experience was fantastic as well. The ultra wide curved screen made viewing angles great. I can still see everything going on here, and it was very easy to identify enemies with the vivid colors and the quick response time. It's also not too wide that you actually need to turn your head too much. It's just the right amount. The cherry on top of everything is that 144 Hz at 1 millisecond response time, which just feels so smooth and easy to flick around on such a big display. I enjoyed really my time playing some CSGO and all of that. It was such a dream. Now, even though the GM34 does feature FreeSync 2 and is also G-Sync compatible now, we still notice some screen tearing, but at least it wasn't that much, less than we actually thought it would. Now, we didn't see any ghosting as well, but we did see quite a bit of a backlight bleed. However, it wasn't that noticeable in a game especially, and for the size, I feel it's actually not too bad. I have seen a lot worse. Now, you do also get HDR as a feature, or HDR 400. But again, yeah, considering that it's only 400 and its brightness, it's definitely not gonna be worth it to use. It's just a branding feature, really. That's all. If you want to go HDR, it has to be HDR like 1000 to really make it enjoyable. But now, how was it actually to use for a daily driver? Now, of course, you can also have the same experience with 2 separate monitors, or with my previous setup having 3 monitors. But coming from those 3 displays, I have to say that I kind of started to hate borders, and this is where ultrawide really comes into play, and especially the CM34 with its very thin bezels as well. It does look nice and clean, and just makes everything look nice and big without breaking anything. So it does look very nice for that, especially coming from the 3 monitors with quite thick bezels in between all of them. It kind of gets a bit irritating because you have to look up past that and nothing really seems to flow, and that's where the thinner bezels on the 34-inch does really come into play as well, keeping everything just nice and clean. Of course, it's not really that needed, but it just looks nice, and that's usually what you want to go for. Of course, it's not just all great news. Unfortunately, the menu isn't really that great. It kind of feels a bit old and lacking. It just feels old and clunky, really. You do still get a lot of features in the menu, but I do still feel that also the buttons here at the bottom does feel a bit old, especially for such a new and high-end monitor. A joystick would have been a lot nicer. Now, of course, you do have a couple of features like the on-screen crosshairs that you can apply. You have your FPS counter, you have your blue light filter that you can apply, and then also, again, you do have your picture-in-picture as well. A few other features here and there, but those ones were the mains. Now, another complaint is that it does have 2 3-watt speakers that are quite bad. Even my phone has louder and clearer speakers than the monitor, unfortunately. And I know most people don't really care because they do have separate desktop speakers, but for us here in the studio, we actually use them quite a lot because we go through so many different components every single time, or swapping out everything. Having speakers is quite handy, and that's just our case. And also, if you don't need to buy speakers, then why not? If your monitor has good enough, then it's not necessarily needed. So then, in conclusion, for the first try, Cooler Monster really did a bang-on job here. The GM34 ticks pretty much all of the boxes for a great ultra-wide gaming monitor. The size is perfect, the refresh rate is fast, and the color is spot on, and it does look good. So depending on the price that you can pick it up for, I think that's going to be the biggest differentiation between some of the other monitors, because it does sound kind of expensive in certain countries, especially we heard in Australia it's quite a bit expensive. But again, for here in South Africa, for the first time ever, it's actually not bad, and it's actually worth getting. So I would say if the GM34 is a viable option for your next ultra-wide gaming monitor, just make sure on the price and everything else that you would actually need a ultra-wide gaming monitor for. But yeah, we're just gonna be sad to see it go. But yeah, that's pretty much it for our review of Cooler Monster's first 34-inch ultra-wide gaming monitor. Very good job again, Cooler Monster. I am quite surprised. So if you guys want to get it for yourself, I will leave links in the video description. A big thanks to Cooler Monster South Africa for sending it over for review. If you guys enjoyed this review, please like, share, comment like always, and I'll check all of you next time. Cheers, guys.